Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Well, welcome to Commander Runningcloud's log. This is a consumer alert, a consumer warning. So let me start. Oh, look at my complexion. Looking pretty whack right now. Well, this conversation is about GEICO, Honda, and CarMax. And I'm going to warn you, it's very, very shocking. This story is very shocking. At least it was shocking to me. I mean, I should be used to the kind of corruption that we're dealing with in America these days, but frankly, I'm not. I don't think I'll ever get used to it. I think I'll always remember the days when we had Bill Curtis on CBS Chicago exposing things, and we had Consumer Reports magazine, and we had just a lot of people with good old Christian values, actually, who didn't feel comfortable cheating anybody or being cheated. There's still a power outage here in Houston, Texas, and my refrigerator's been broken for days, so I've been fasting a lot. Maybe that's why I'm so flushed right now, but excuse me for being so flushed. Let me get my fan to cool me off a bit. That might help. Um, okay. Now, this story might trigger people who have been victims of police abuse. Uh, okay. Now, let me remind you that when this happened, I was like over 65, I think, and I was living in Phoenix, Arizona. And I had been doing a lot of investigative reports and publishing them on Facebook, some on Twitter, but mostly on Facebook, about things that I found in Arizona, like malls that were empty, um, state parks that were occupied by Germans and Swiss, um, malls that were installing huge, 15-foot tall circular pipes, malls that weren't malls at all, uh, warehouses like for Dick's out near Mesa, Arizona, and Tempe, Arizona, a Dick's warehouse that was really a railroad depot, private railroads running through Wickenburg, archaeological sites that were being exploited by Europeans, ponds that were being drained by Europeans, Tesla factory on Indian land, a ghost town being built in Queens Creek, um, real estate fraud, I would call it, when they raise your rent, when they know you're a senior citizen and you're not going to be getting any raises, and they raise your rent by over 10%, 12, 14%, 12% a month until you can't even afford to move because you're just who would expect it, right? You'd say, oh, well, they can't possibly raise my rent by $100 again, but they're trying to control the market. Thieves in the real estate, they would have real estate training programs where the Troutman couple would end up getting a lot of people in, and then they'd steal your leads so you couldn't make a living. It was very hard to make a living, and I was documenting everything I was going through. It was like an autobiography of my living there, and I exposed so much corruption. And when I went to Scottsdale, a lot of bad things happened to me in Scottsdale. But when I went to Scottsdale and started filming them, they were using a public storage as a private installation, and they were building things underground there. And at one point, they had a lot of tanks, army tanks parked, and they were building an aqueduct in from the Roosevelt Lake and from another lake up there. They were just up to all kinds of thievery. and fraud and thievery, and real estate fraud and thievery, stealing water from the Indians. I was at the Apache lands where there's gold all around them, but they're living in a place where their homes are falling down because they're not allowed to start businesses of their own because of the federal government privately owned Bureau of Indian Lands, BIA. I don't know everything, but I was documenting so much and writing so much and exposing so much that one of the politicians actually followed me around one day, around Scottsdale one day, because after Donald J. Trump, the president, ended the illegal immigration in Arizona, a lot of the slave labor there moved. A lot of the slave labor went away. I mean, the landscapers in our apartment building went from a crew of like 7 men to 2. It was just that dramatic. And when it came to fixing the swimming pool, the owner's son was a heroin addict. And you could tell he was, and he's out there trying to be a manager. It was kind of sad. One of the owners, the partners, had a son. So it was really sad when the Europeans came out to try to do the jobs that the Mexicans and South Americans had been doing under the pressure of being illegal aliens, right? I remember talking to the manager of the landscaping crew one day, and he was telling me that when he first moved north, he had such great expectations for himself, and that the racism in America totally surprised him because of the reputation of America as being a place where anybody hardworking and decent can make it, and in a nation under God. And he was in his 60s too, and he was just heartbroken because he was having to come out to work to take the place of all the men that he had hired who had to flee from ICE and the border police when Donald Trump closed the border in 2016. So I made a lot of enemies. I even had that politician, I can't remember his name, but he followed me around in his red sports car with a cocktail in his hand. And I pulled off on the side because I knew I was being followed. So I pulled into a driveway and he comes speeding around the bend, and he looks and he sees me, and he's got his drink and he looks kind of sheepish. But they decided to target me, is the bottom line, okay? Because I had been in Scottsdale, Cave Creek, and Wickenburg. And when I went to Cave Creek, I actually drew a crowd. The police had to come and escort me out of there because they were like zombies. They were coming out of their homes because I was cruising through their town, because the illegal aliens that they normally would have guarding everything weren't there. They weren't around. And the Europeans who would be running the road gangs were doing the work that the Mexicans and South Americans were no longer doing. So when I got to drive all around Cave Creek and see a lot of stuff, I remember I was parked outside of what was supposed to be a public park, but someone had built wrought iron fences all around it. So I actually put up so I published all these pictures of these Europeans almost snarling at me because I was in Cave Creek. And they had like a obvious devil worshiper site there, but they closed off a state park near Black Rock, and they were obviously doing illegal mining. So I'm uncovering all these things, and I'm becoming very notorious in Arizona. They're knowing me when I come. So they decided after I visited Scottsdale, and they called the police on me to have me removed and trespassed from a public parking lot, at public storage, right outside a big mall. Not the Fashion Valley, might have been Fashion Valley Mall, right outside of a big mall, because I was photographing a surveyor, and I took a close-up picture of a machine he was using to track traffic. If you came into the parking lot, you would set off his thing, and it was public funds paid for it and everything. So making it very, very uncomfortable for people like the semiconductor chip makers that wanted to move in there, the Tesla chip makers that wanted to move in there, whatever Dick's Sporting Good was smuggling. I was making it really hard for the smugglers because I'd exposed the private train system. I'd even driven all the way to Nogales on the border, between Arizona and Mexico, and documented what I saw there. Um, commuter trains, you know. So I had become very notorious because I was publishing so much on Facebook about corporate crime in Arizona. Now, road gangs in Arizona were huge. They had so many racing clubs. If you do a search for racing clubs in Arizona, you'll get a lot of hits on the map because racing clubs were huge because there were so many professional drivers out there tracking and following the citizens. If you think I'm lying, let me tell you this. There was a guy who said he wanted to be a client for my book editing business, and he gave me an abstract of some of his work to see if it could be made into a book at all. And one of the stories that he told was about his leaders in the European nationalist community, his leaders having him follow around some people from an Asian country like well, I don't know exactly the name of the place, but I think the people were Buddhists or something like that. And one of the things that this guy did was he followed them all around. And he was talking about one time when the monk that had come to visit did some kind of magic and they lost him. They couldn't even see him. And he was also talking about how the Four Corners Indians knew the same songs and dances as the people from the other nation knew, that it had been passed on through their tribes and through their families, and they had a lot of the same culture that they shared, which was a wonderful collaboration for me in my discovery of what looked to me as a Buddhist temple of sorts in Utah, almost untouched, weather worn, but virtually untouched. It's hard to get around in Utah. They have most of the property cut off. And when I drive to Utah, there'll be a cop watching me come in and a cop watching me go out right on the highway under extreme surveillance there. But there are plenty of ruins, and a lot of the ruins look Chinese. I mean, Chinese style architecture, with the dome shaped roof, thatch style roof. I saw so much stuff that indicated to me that a lot of Asians settled in Arizona and Utah. And that's why so many of the tribes look kind of Asian. They look kind of Chinese, some of the tribes. But that would be something that the European nationalists would wish to hide because they're trying to pretend like there was no America until they got here. And they also want to make enemies with China. They do not want Asian people to dominate the land because they want to claim all of the assets for themselves. So me exposing this was becoming more and more dangerous for their security, because if I let the world know that if you go to Utah, you'll see evidence that people from Siberia walked right across into Alaska, down, and right into America. They did. And the proof is in the anthropology, is in the archaeology, in the architecture. And I know the Europeans follow everybody around because this guy told me he was ordered to follow these people around, track their moves, study where they go. And they got so close that they watched the dances, everything. They infiltrated, and that was what they were ordered to do. Okay, so it's real. So they're following me all around. They know who I am. I'm exposing things they don't want known. I'm putting their future investments there under risk because they're really moving aggressively into Arizona. And slavery in Arizona, well, Arizona didn't become a part of the United States until after the war with Mexico. And Louisiana, I don't know, I don't think it was the Louisiana, no, it wasn't the Louisiana Purchase, but well, it was some kind of war the Europeans fought to get the border to Mexico and America. And it was during this war treaty was settled after the Emancipation Proclamation, which means that they were never under any restrictions about slavery. And so I think they definitely had slavery there. I saw the slave quarters in Cave Creek. I saw the place where they locked people up in a little home in Cave Creek. I saw where the guards bordered all around the side, probably the same race guards. And all of it is down the hill and across the street from where all the Europeans are living. And even there was a hierarchy. High up on the hill, there were bigger homes with more property, even a little castle I think I saw there. I saw a castle here in Texas by the border too. And then the lower you get, the more dusty and poor and uneducated the Europeans looked. And then there'd be the highway. And then on the other side of the highway, you find, some decent homes, but that they're probably for the overseers in the same race. And then really, really small kind of shacks with bars on the windows. And then access to the minefield, a different minefield than the one over by Black Rock. This one was different. So I'm documenting all this stuff, and I become public enemy number one to the European nationalist corporate investors trying to steal the assets in Arizona, Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico. I'd gone to Colorado, and a guy a European in a white truck put a psychedelic drug in my marijuana. I'm so glad I quit. I should have listened to. People warned me. They said, don't smoke marijuana before I started this. And I just said, I can't live without it. It's too important to me. It's keeping me from getting cancer. It's keeping me from losing my mind. It's keeping the unbearable loneliness away. It's keeping me occupied. I just didn't want to give it up, but I wouldn't have gotten this if I wasn't buying marijuana. And I wouldn't have known Mike, who might have done this, increased this yesterday, the day before yesterday, if I wasn't smoking marijuana. So, but I'll tell you, if I wasn't smoking marijuana, I wouldn't have driven all the way to Colorado to get some. Right? I wouldn't have driven to Colorado. I wouldn't have driven to Bullhead City, McLaughlin. Because when marijuana was illegal in Arizona, it was legal in Colorado, California, and Nevada. So once my potential partner in San Diego, once they legalized it in California and turned it all into retail, they started packaging it and putting different kinds of hard metals and other kinds of additives in it. So I went hunting around to see who had some pure stuff, some good stuff. So, liking something you like, you'll travel for something you like. I remember driving all the way from Connecticut to New Jersey just to see a lover who was very sensuous and worth the trip, right? I'm not going to try a whole bunch of guys out. He appealed to me. I gave him some of my virtue, and it was a good bet, because he became my lover for several years. And I would just drive all the way. It'd be a 2-hour drive each way. And I didn't sleep while I was there. So it was a long trip. So when there's something you want, something that gives you pleasure, you'll be willing to travel to get it, won't you? Well, that's how I felt about the marijuana. So it really motivated me to do a lot of the reconnaissance that I was being asked to do telepathically from my mission leaders. I'm going to call them the good ETs. This was what the good ETs wanted me to do. They wanted some foot on the ground, some native intelligence some participant observer data for the anthropologists and for the war planners, I suppose. I don't know. I just know that later on I heard the word reconnaissance as the description of what I was perceived to have been doing. Because I was documenting so many things that I thought would outrage the Americans. So let me get on with the story about how Honda, GEICO, and CarMax fit into this. Once my rent rose higher than I could afford, but I could just still make it, Patty Koch, the property manager, sent me a letter that said my lease would not be renewed because I called the police too much. I called the police to protect me from the gang stalkers, the people breaking into my apartment. A woman even had my car towed. I mean, a man even set 2 dogs loose on me and Lil Foxy. I mean, they were just outrageous. I would go outside to walk my dog and they'd let their children taunt me because they were all a part of the gang. They were all a part of the European nationalist gangs and they were all taking orders. So, oh my God, it was really terrible there. I remember one day I took some children to the pool. Some black children moved in and I took them to the pool because their parents were so busy. And I was attacked by a Mexican and a European. They just attacked me. They attacked the way I looked. They didn't want me swimming in the pool. Anyway, I'm sorry, I get complex post-traumatic stress secondary to European nationalist racism when I think about how abusively I've been treated by the Europeans during my life and how petty and how consistent and how organized and unified they've been about it. I mean, they don't break rank. They do not break rank. So, because they were not going to renew my lease, even if I was willing to pay, I mean, the rent went up. It went from $850 to $1250 in 2 or 3 years. 2015, 2016, 17, 18, 19, 2020. Well, I guess it was longer than that. Well, I don't know. I don't know what the years are. All the years are adding up. I just know that every time I know why, because I would get a 2-year lease. That's why the time went like that. So it would have been my 4th lease renewal and the rent was up $400 from where it started. And Patty Koch, she just didn't have any mercy. And I saw the other residents of this place and I know they didn't have more money. I mean, I saw people that I know for a fact didn't have that much money to spend on rent. So I felt that there was like an unfair pricing scale that she was using, but there was nowhere to appeal. Okay, meanwhile, we've got the road gangs. And the road gangs are all a part of a group that includes the car dealers. Okay, I'd had a really hot little 2015 Honda Civic Hybrid. It got up to 50 miles to the tank. So I was able to drive out to places in Arizona where drivers usually didn't go unless they had their own gas, right? Because I remember once I ran out of gas around Salton Sea Lake in California, and I drove off the road to Salton Lake, and they would not sell me any gas. A young man finally had to come out, and because he was too young to be codified with racism, he was willing to sell me some gas. But they didn't want to sell me any gas from their gas tank. So I'm driving this Honda, but I'm also getting breast cancer. I got breast cancer. And when the air conditioner went out on this Honda, I tried to take it to Bell Honda on Bell Road in Phoenix. and they quoted me a price that was twice the price if you went to a third party. Okay. And when Honda Care covered it, because I bought Honda Care, so it would have covered the air conditioner, they refused to honor the Honda Care. They had Honda Care lie and say that I wasn't covered on it. So I thought, wow, why would they charge me $1,000 more than the lowest price I could get from an independent? So I took the car to Arrowhead Honda. Now, this Honda Civic Hybrid always had a really funny odor, a really funny smell inside the car. It's a smell I've never smelt before, so I can't describe it as electrical or gaseous or chemical. It was just a very different kind of a smell. So the smell was getting a little stronger too. So I take the car to Arrowhead Honda in Peoria, Arizona, where the town hall has absolutely hoarded water, where the town hall has the police station, and the police station wouldn't take the report about the theft of my car. But let me go on, because it sort of goes over a couple of years, this story, because of all of the other complications that got woven in. So I had bought, okay, so I'd already had a bad experience with Honda when I bought the Cross Tour. The Cross Tour looked gorgeous, but it got 7 miles to the gallon in the city. I was getting 7 miles to the gallon in the Cross Tour. So I needed to trade it in. I needed to trade it in before the contract on it was up. Now, when I bought the Cross Tour, I traded in a fully paid for 10-year-old Honda Accord EX with leather seats. I think it was an automatic transmission, but it might have been a manual. I'm not sure. Anyway, I traded it in because I was driving to California and I didn't think it would make it through the mountains because it had some front end axle damage on it. So this man was Iranian, and he was an Iranian refugee, and he was living in Tucson and working there at Honda Motor in Tucson. So, I told him I wanted this car and everything, and so he sold me the Cross Tour. And I'm sure he took advantage of my desperation. I'm sure he did. Because I don't think I got the very best price that I could have gotten. But I was desperate. And I'm telling you, don't be desperate or you'll be taken advantage of. And I knew this. I was so shrewd on all of my other car deals. And that was about my 5th Honda. And I was so shrewd on my Honda car deals. I was a shrewd bargainer. I'd read everything and I'd always done the research. But at this point, I'm fleeing Juan Luis Hernandez in Connecticut, right? He's broken. He's living in my house. If I put him out, he breaks in. He tells me that he'll call the police, that if I call the police to get him put out, the police will come after me instead of him. And I know it's true because I know a thing or two about European nationalist racism and the police. And I've seen European nationalist racists command Black police to be abusive to me. And they were. They had no scruples about it. They would be even laughing while they did it. And that happened more than once. So I knew that if you put a European against a Black, and you put a European man against a Black woman, and you bring European nationalist law enforcement in, it wasn't going to go well. And I had marijuana in my house. I was not taking any psychoactive drugs much. I had pretty much weaned myself off of almost every one of them that they had me on. I was just occasionally taking lithium. And I was smoking marijuana. And it was keeping my mind pretty mellow and occupied. It has a wonderful effect on me, very curative. And it just reminds me that marijuana was indigenous to this country, just like me, For all I know, marijuana could have nutrients and valuable elements that are important for my diet. I'm not a European, okay? Kraft macaroni and cheese is not my idea of dinner. So when the Europeans come in and they find out what the natives like, and then they illegalize what the natives like, that's a form of control, of mind control, isn't it? They didn't make beer illegal. Beer does not appeal to me. They didn't make beer illegal because so many Europeans like beer, and they have beer in Europe. But I don't think they had marijuana in Europe when they had marijuana in America growing abundantly. They used to call it Jimson weed in Zora Neale Hurston's day. So it's an indigenous crop. It never should have been outlawed. And it was beneficial to me in many ways, spiritually, psychologically, and physically. So I miss it. I do. I miss it. But that's okay. Here in Texas, they have something noxious called hemp. And it's terrible. It doesn't even smell like marijuana. It's terrible. And they pump it in this room. I don't know how they get it in here because the air conditioner's not working. Anyway, let me go on with my story about Honda, GEICO, and CarMax, because it's very important that people know, because you would never imagine. Anyway, I take the Honda Civic Hybrid, okay? And that's the car that the very same Iranian man sold me when I traded my cross tour in, right? And once again, I'm desperate. Get me out of this behemoth. It's killing me on gas, right? So once again, I don't get a good deal, and I'm upside down in the deal, which means that he bundled what I owed on the cross tour into the American Honda Finance Company loan that I got, because I've been with American Honda Finance Company since I bought my first Honda, because I had always had pretty good credit until the housing market and the automobile market in Arizona got a hold of me. And then I just fell out of the bottom. And it made me think about all the retirees, and that's really a form of elder abuse, and how a lot of retirees in my generation were encouraged to retire to Arizona. That was good for our health. In New York City, they actually had commercials about retiring to Arizona. So imagine you retire to Arizona, and then you get your new car for your retirement, and they rip you off. They sell you a lemon. And then you get your apartment and they lift the rent up. And the next thing you know, you're on the state. You need state support. And once you're on the state, well, you become a part of the grant system, the federal grant system, because the state gets paid for every welfare recipient. So it's beneficial to the state. So you have all of these Europeans conspiring to break you down, to make you economically dependent on the state, and then the medical system, and then they take you out, okay? In Arizona, I saw Mayo Clinic, but it wasn't open for regular people, and they had facilities where they had no patients at all, just mining. I saw the University of Arizona Medical Research Center. They actually sent the supervisor out to ask me why I was on the property, because they were right near open fields. I mean, everybody, all the Europeans in Arizona are all about the stealing and the sneaky stealing of things, of land, of mining rights, building buildings over processing factories. So it looks like a school, but it's not. It's a covered factory. So they're very paranoid, very paranoid. And I discovered all these things. I document all these things. I filmed these people coming out to question me. I published it all on Facebook. And it was outrageous. So I trade in the cross tour and I get the Honda Civic Hybrid. Okay. Now, I drive it around for a couple of years and I get breast cancer. I get it in 2015. By 2016, I have breast cancer. Okay, it went into remission. Is that what they call it? Yeah. I won't tell you, any more about the cancer. But after that, when I took the Honda Civic Hybrid in to get the air conditioner, the first Honda dealer quotes me a price that would drive me away. The second dealer says he'll fix it, and they take the car in and they keep the car for several weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. They kept the car so long that the car rental in my insurance ran out. And they were using, it starts with an E, the one with the green circle in the E. I should have put them in here too. They're using that car insurance, and it's not far from the car dealership. So I'm driving, the rental car. And because the time ran out on the contract, they want to do a forgery of the contract. So they can, is it called executive? I don't know what it's called. But they want to do a forgery, and they want me to sign off on the forgery. The woman in the car rental company was a European from South Africa, and she actually had her son come in. And I have so many bad memories, because he vandalized my car. Okay, and this was at a different time from the air conditioner, but she showed me to him. And when I drove my car home that day, the bottom panel of my car fell out on the highway, and I just felt that the Europeans from South Africa had sabotaged my car, because when she had her son come in, she called him to come in. I could tell they were talking about me. And I had told her that my stepfather, Isaac Tipeti, was a South African, a Zulu or Basotho tribe. And so she wanted to point her son out. And he was actually leaving the next day for a military deployment. He had joined the United States of America Corporation military. And I'm pretty sure he sabotaged my car. Anyway, when I bring it back for the air conditioner, that car rental agency wants me to sign a fraudulent document to change the dates, because the car still wasn't fixed and the insurance was out. The Honda Care or whatever, whoever was covering the car rental, it was out. But none of the mechanics would get into the car. And they said, we still don't have it fixed. We can't fix it. And the smell in the car by now is so strong that when they're telling me that they can't fix the car, they've got all the car doors open to air it out while it's running. Okay? Now, I don't know if, I'm just telling you what I saw. So the dealer says, listen, I can put you in a different car. He said, we have to wait until the engine cools down before we can open it, because that engine is nuclear. I don't know if he said nuclear or atomic energy. He said that the hybrid battery on the Honda Civic 2015 was some kind of a device that expelled so much radiation that they had to wait until the battery was drained before they could fix the air conditioner. And that was what was taking so long. That's what they told me. And when they told me that the motor, that the engine that runs the 2015 Honda Civic Hybrid was a nuclear, I knew that it had given me breast cancer. I said, this car gives cancer, right? And the dealer pretty much said, yeah. He pretty much said, yeah. He pretty much said, yeah. So I understood why none of them wanted to get in the car. I understood why I had had breast cancer. I understood why the Bell Honda mechanics priced themselves out of the market so they wouldn't even have to touch this poisonous car. And I understood why, if I did a search online for a 2015 Honda Civic Hybrid, I could hardly find any. There were hardly any. And you'd think a car that fantastic with that kind of mileage, you'd think that it would be everywhere in the resale market because it would be so valuable, but it was a cancer-causing machine. And I'm pretty sure that the Iranian salesman, the Iranian refugee in Tucson, Arizona, I'm pretty sure he knew it was a dangerous car because he'd already taken advantage of me once. So why wouldn't he try to unload this death machine on me once again? I mean, I'm a single woman. What do I have to live for, right? Single woman over 60. I'm expendable. Plus, I don't care what anybody says. If you are a refugee from Iran during Desert Storm, in order to get over here, you had to sell something. Okay? You had to sell out your people in some kind of way, or you never would have gotten a visa to live here. You never would have gotten a job at a Honda dealership. You never would have gotten a place to live in Tucson. It's hard to find a place to live in Tucson. I looked many, many times. Okay? And he said that when he first came here, he went to Chicago and he got off the plane and he saw all that snow and he said, hey, this is not the place for me. What else have you got? And they sent him to Tucson. He didn't even have to leave the airport in Chicago. He could pick wherever he wanted to go. So it's really funny when we talk about the immigrants at the border and the immigrants that Monkey Works reports are being sent over directly from Germany. We know that they have a place made for them, maybe in Queens Creek, Arizona, where they were building ghost towns, maybe in Wickenburg Ranch, north of Wickenburg, where there was another ghost town. You see, the accommodations were already made. So I don't think that this particular Iranian refugee had any scruples about doing me wrong. And here's the weird thing. All of my other Hondas were bought in Massachusetts. Okay? I bought them in Massachusetts. And one of the mechanics there had a thing for me. So I always got a good deal. I always got treated fairly because one of the mechanics there had a thing for me until they transferred him over to Kia. But I mean, he just had a real crush on me. I liked him back. You know, he was named John too. And I really liked him. We just had we had a vibe going on. And so I always got treated right. So I got spoiled. I trusted Honda with my business because I had a personal relationship with the last dealership, the dealership in Northampton Honda. And I bought all my Hondas there. So I just transferred that positive consumer experience from Northampton Honda in Massachusetts to Tucson Honda, the Honda dealership in Tucson. And as far as I'm sorry, he wasn't Iranian. Oh, I'm so sorry. The man was Palestinian. Okay, in Tucson, lots of Jews in Arizona. Lots of Jews. I mean, I had Israelis insult me with Israeli accents in Scottsdale and ask me, what am I doing here? And look at me with disdain. So to get a Palestinian a job in Tucson, that Palestinian had to give something away. He just had to. So I'm sorry that I said he was Iranian. He wasn't a Persian. He was a Palestinian. Because I remember now telling him that he shouldn't think that Americans don't care about Palestinians and don't care about the Arabs. It's only the media and the people that run the media that want the land, and that the Black Americans and the other Americans really empathize with the Palestinians and what they're going through. Because I had that conversation with him. So I thought, we were bonded. But, a traitor is never going to bond with you. And if he got out of that country and could pick wherever he wanted to live and then get a job and have nice clothes and a place to live, he sold something. He sold something of value to Europeans with power, to Israelis with power, and they took care of him once he got to the United States. So he wasn't going to care about me, but I didn't know that then. This is back when I was naive and trusting and normal about things. I thought I lived in a good world then. I thought that I lived in a world where the government cared about people. So I get to this place where I've got this Honda hybrid that I know gave me cancer already. And I'm seeing the evidence on their faces. They kept the car too long, hoping to drain the battery of its radiation, but they couldn't. They were going to need it more. They wanted me to forge car rental documents, and I refused. So they had to do something. So when the dealer said to me, I'll give you a good deal on a new car. I'll give you a good deal on a new car. You'll be paying less than you're paying now. Well, he lied, didn't he? But I don't know about you, but by the time they present all the paperwork, I don't know how to get out of the deal. And I wasn't going to get back in the cancer car, was I? Maybe as a sales technique, they had the cancer car running right outside with the doors open. And I knew the smell, and now I know it's causing cancer because of the radiation being expelled from the hybrid engine. And now I'm understanding why there are no Honda hybrids anymore. Not like that one. So they put me in a deal, and once again, I'm upside down. So now I'm upside down twice, right? So now I go from paying no car note at all. I'm sorry, I just remembered how Bank of America let Juan Luis rob me. And how when I asked for the records, they sent me reams and reams of blank paper because they knew that I would see that my bank account had been skimmed. So I'm not paying, so I go from not paying a car note to paying $400 car note to paying $500 car note, right? So I'm not a happy camper. And he puts me in a car that is so ugly. I've been driving Honda Accord EX, which is the top of the line with leather seats since the 1990s. And now they're giving me cloth seats. They're giving me a horrible gray color. They're giving me a real low-class Honda. And it's not even an EX. I think it's an LX. I'm sorry, I just want to cry because I really loved my cars. Ever since my Toyota Celica 1984. That car was gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous car. And the way that it handled on the road when you turn the wheel like this, it hugged the corner. Because those were when they were made in Japan with Japanese precision, not with American, European nationalist sloppiness. You drive a GM and in the steering wheel, it feels like there's miles between you and the axle. But in this Honda Celica, in this Toyota Celica, it was the Imperial model too. I don't know if the guy just called it that to juice me, but it was so cute. That car was it didn't look like any, people just watched me drive it. And I would drag race it on the Eden's Expressway. You could drag on the Eden's Expressway because that's where the Europeans drive. But you couldn't drag it on the Dan Ryan or the Lakeshore Drive South, because the cops were always looking for the black people, the Americans, to get. So it was great for drag racing. It was a sharp car. Oh my God, I loved it. And it was a stick. So you had maximum control. Oh my God. So you can see my car matters to me. Ever since Barbie got her pink sports car at Christmas from Santa Claus, I have loved cars. Even my Barbie had a car. Even my Midge, Barbie's best friend, had a car. Okay? So sports car, was like a part of my cool. It's part of my thing. So here I am driving this hunk of shit, right? And I'm paying more for it than I've ever paid for a car. And the guy says, and he cheats me on the deal, totally cheats me, doesn't keep his promises, keeps me there for hours, of course, doesn't keep his promises, and I've got to get out of this car. So once again, third time in a row, I'm desperate. So I take the car, and he says, listen, in 2 years you come back, I'll swap you out of that car. In 2 years I came back, he swapped me out of the car, and my car note went up again, right? So he put me from a 2018, I go from a 2015 to a 2018 to a 2020. And the 2018 looks just like the 2020. Same ugly gray color, same everything. Just a total disappointment. Made me wish that I'd gone with Kia or some other brand, But when I was growing up in America, we were part of the advertising age, and we had something called brand loyalty because we could trust our brands. And if you had a brand you trusted, you pretty much stuck with it because you knew that you would get consistent performance. And we had Underwriters Laboratory to be sure that all of our electrical appliances were properly grounded and weren't going to erode or anything. I mean, we had consumer reports that would rank every product that you wanted to buy. It was a really great time to be a consumer in America. And it was the time when Americans got the reputation for being the greatest producers and manufacturers of quality products on the planet, because so much was put into oversight and quality testing and quality control from independent sources. But all that went away, all that went away. We got the FDA and they're complicit. We got nothing. Okay, we got nothing. So here I am in a worse car than the car before, right? But I'm just thinking, well, what can I do? What can I do? One day, I'll get my inheritances and I'll be able to buy whatever car I want. I just have to get through this. Okay. So it's good enough to do more of my investigative reporting, more of my vlogging of corruption in Arizona and European nationalist racism and people that are following me, and I'm filming them when I stop the car and I film them following me and film them saying, "What are you doing driving around here? Isn't this America? You don't own these streets." Yeah, there was a lot of surveillance there in Arizona. I think people got paid for surveillance, actually. And road gangs, very aggressive road gangs. Oh my God. I'll never forget a rainstorm on the 301. And 5-6 cars come speeding around me, and it's pelting rain. You can't even see. And I've got a traffic jam just around me. I started to cry and just turned off the road. It was too hard, and you can't tell if you're going to go off the road into the shoulder or into something terrible, and you got your flashers on, but people are speeding past you, and you got brights in your back. It was intimidation, deliberate intimidation. Because there's a big airfield out there, and they were really, really doing a lot of excavation on the 301, and you couldn't exit the 301 to get to the excavation sites. So it was really major league theft there in Debbie Lesko's territory, legislative area in Arizona. Debbie Lesko. Yeah, I was so notorious that when Debbie Lesko had a little meeting after I did some story on some expose on them, they wouldn't let me in. They said, "Oh, they said, are you Runningcloud?" I'm like, "Yeah." They said, "Yeah, you can't come in." I said, "Are you kidding?" "Yeah." They told us you got a little dog and you can't come in. They forbade me from attending a public political meeting at the Sun City Community Center, their educational center there. They prevented me from going. That's how notorious I had gotten. So after I went to Scottsdale and started to film them and what they were doing in the public storage facility and what they were doing outside the mall and the size of those tubes and everything. And I visited Cave Creek, and they start to surround my car, and the police come driving up. And when the police come driving up, I can drive out. And I actually almost got in a fist fight with a woman there because I had pulled my car over, and she said, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" And she got in my window, and then she touched me through the window, and I jumped out of the car and I threw something at her, and I was going to fight her, but she backed down. So that's how aggressive they were there in Cave Creek. And I think she was there trying to warn me that they're gathering at the bottom of the hill and they might drag you out of your car and kill you. You better get the F out of here. She was trying to let me know. She reminded me so much of Martha McSally. I think that was why I quit trying to hit her after she touched me, after she hit me. I think that's why I quit trying to fight her, because I looked at her and I'm like, oh, she looks like Martha McSally. Maybe she's a friend and not an enemy. Because I'd pretty much invaded their territory pretty doggone good. I mean, they were at the point where if I stopped off the highway, they wouldn't even use their cell phones. They would send a messenger truck out to go out, and then the both of them would come back around into the drive where I would be down the road from Cave Creek. So I was under some pretty heavy surveillance. So I'm looking for a place to live in Las Vegas, and I'm also going through this kind of mind control thing that has Elon Musk a big feature in it, right? Because now Elon Musk's technology is able to interfere with human neurology. So included in my real telepathic messages would be false flags from the Nazis, Elon Musk. Okay? And he was supposed to be a good guy, but when you really look at him, he's not a good guy at all. I mean, Texas is going through a terrible crisis. We haven't had electricity here for 6 days now. My refrigerator has been broken. I ordered food yesterday and it was half rotten, but it was good enough to eat. I mean, the sweet potato was blackened and looked, kind of moldy at the top. But they gave me extra beef, and the beef was fresh, and the chicken was soaked in vinegar to try to get the taste of rot out of it, but it still had to go in the garbage. But at least they tried, right? Because they lost power too. But, when you get, come here, Foxy. When you get your food from a restaurant, you got to take what you get, right? Oh, I hope I didn't. You got to take what you get, right? Hi, Foxy. Hi, Foxy. There's Foxy. Hi. Hello. I'm Foxy. I'm Foxy. I'm Foxy. I'm Foxy. It's Foxy Brown. Hi, Foxy. Hello, Silver Rain. People used to talk to him because he went with me everywhere. He's a service animal. So he went with me everywhere, and I would carry him everywhere in my arms. I just got the carrier later in his life. I would carry him in my arm. And people would talk to my dog. They would say, "Hi, little dog." So I used to have a voice for him and say, "Hello, how are you? What are you doing? Hello, hello." Oh, Foxy. I love you so much, Poofiness. Yes, that's Foxy. He's a great service dog. So I'm getting all these confusing messages, right? Because Elon Musk is working and the Nazis are working with mental telepathy, mind control. But I'm a very good critical thinker and very good with discernment. And I'll be fooled for a while, but I won't be fooled forever, you know? Gee, I don't know if my clothes were, I hope I did. Okay. Well, wardrobe malfunction. I don't know when I got up to get Foxy. I hope my clothes didn't, the buttons didn't. Well, anyway, I'll have to review that when I can. Hope it doesn't get censored or anything. Around 1 hour and 45 minutes. And I still haven't gotten to the point of the story. Oh my God, if I have to repeat this, I'm going to lose my mind. So I hope my clothes. Okay, let me go on. Honda. I went to Las Vegas many times. And one time when I went to Las Vegas, I was saying to, you know, to the telepathic conversation that if this scenario you want me to live with Elon Musk is real, which it was looking really doubtful, he's going to have to show up. And he did. He showed up as Werner von Braun in a wheelchair. Okay? Big fat belly, big fat round head. Werner von Braun. You could look at him and tell. And the same beady eyes that Elon has. And they projected a hologram of an Elon Musk person by the D Hotel. And they had a woman with big high shoes, a portly woman who's short. And she'd stomp around and she'd stand directly in my eye line. And I'd seen her several times before. I saw her at the beach in Brownsville after that. But I had seen her somewhere else. And it was like in The Matrix when the woman in the red dress walks by and they say, "What did you notice in that scene?" And they're like, "We noticed the woman in the red dress." And they're like, "Yeah, well, that's because you were supposed to." Well, she was like that. She commanded my attention. And it was near the Fremont Street Experience, which was absolutely fantastic. And it was during COVID. So there were hardly any crowds. I mean, things were open, but there were hardly any crowds. Okay. And I had been going to Las Vegas all through COVID. And I saw Las Vegas with every single light in the city turned out. And that was amazing because I got married in Las Vegas in 1981 or 82. 1981. I got married in Las Vegas. So I knew Las Vegas very well. I had spent time with Uncle Walter, who was an attorney for Billie Holiday in the 1950s or 40s when she was accused of stabbing somebody. He was a criminal attorney, Walter Lear Gordon Jr. And he and Aunt Clara, my in-laws, they like to go to Las Vegas after Christmas until the day before New Year's and the day before New Year's Eve. And we would meet them there, my husband and I. We would meet them there every year for many years, 3 or 4 of them, I guess, of our first time. And so we eloped to Las Vegas when we got married, because for a lot of reasons we eloped. Anyway, I knew Las Vegas really well, and I got to see it dark. But I saw Werner von Braun, and I saw an Elon Musk hologram. And I'm sorry, but when I left that area, I practically ran because I felt, okay, the Werner von Braun in the wheelchair had already gone away, but through the Fremont Street Experience, we were doing mind games. Okay, I was saying, if the balls come out like this, then I'm going to know that this is what it is, that this is Elon here. And so it happened. The balls came out a certain kind of way that they had not come out before. And the entire time it happens, Werner von Braun, Elon Musk over here, he's looking at me, he's looking at the Sky Show, he's looking at me, he's looking at the Fremont's Free Experience. So he's communicating, he's looking. It's something that's really happening. Now you have to understand that Neuralink is the proof of it, that they're trying to come up with a machine technology, but that doesn't mean that they don't already have a soft technology that can either be transmitted by light waves or sound waves or a combination of these things. Okay? So this was in a winter. Okay, so when I leave this area, I felt a fear that I had never felt before. And I'm saying, I don't care what happens to America. I cannot be with that person. And I just felt that the person wasn't even human. Okay? It was as if I had met a reptilian face to face. That's how I felt. And I was shocked because I'm walking away from the area. You know, the Elon Musk hologram. I know it's a hologram because the size is not proportional to the other people in the crowd. And he's standing in sort of in front of the people in the line as if he's in line and looking, towards me and looking around and looking really innocent. And you could just tell there was something totally, totally off, right? So I walk this way, I walk around, and I felt a fear like I've never felt before. I felt that there was just a presence that wasn't normal in some kind of way. And it was terrifying. Okay? And I said, I can't do this. Okay? But it didn't matter because then, they announced that somebody else was pregnant, and that violated the contract that we had made in Riverside the day I left my indoctrination after my trip to Cortez, Colorado, and then from Cortez to Las Vegas, and then indoctrination in Las Vegas, where I saw the television that changed time streams. Okay? You'd see a celebrity in one timeline, and then they turn the channel and you'd see a celebrity, the same celebrity, in a different timeline, looking close to himself, but not exactly like himself. And the teams would have different names. The sports teams would have different names on them. And the commercials were different. It was like going through a Mandela. What did they call it? A Mandela experience on the television. And the other people there remarked on it as well. So I know it wasn't me. I know it wasn't delusional. We didn't talk about it very much because it was an indoctrination, but we definitely saw it. Well, that was a really wonderful time. But on my way back from the indoctrination, there was this negotiation telepathically at a certain place where I went. It's hard to explain. I went into this store and a person started talking to nobody. And as I listened, I realized the person's talking to me, right? And then when I go out to my car, there's another Secret Service agent or man in black or whatever, and he's at my car and he's talking to me, okay? So then when I leave this place, I'm having a telepathic negotiation about Elon Musk, right? That was in Riverside. So that was before the event where I ran away. This is when I'm saying, okay, if that event in Riverside is real and valid. I'm not liking these conditions at all. And I don't know. I always thought Elon Musk looks pretty revolting in a lot of ways. He's just not my type. Okay, I won't say he's revolting, but he's just totally not my type. So I wasn't happy, but I was willing to, I don't know, if it was going to help America for me to be in a relationship with him, I felt that it would be important. But I don't want to talk about that anymore. It was just a delusion. It wasn't a delusion. It was a false flag at a personal level using mind control, Neuralink advanced systems. Do you understand me? Do you understand me? All right. So after this, I knew that there was not going to be anything that I could not bear the thought of being with this creature, because it wasn't even human. It wasn't real. Okay. So now that was in the winter. Probably in December of 2020. Because by February of 2021, I am ambushed on the highway on my way back from Las Vegas, where I was just looking for a place to live. I'm not even thinking about Elon Musk anymore. That's like, well, I am still thinking because I don't know, and I'm like, but I know I don't want this. And I know all the contract terms that I put forth had been violated. So I was in a void. I didn't know exactly how the future would unfold, exactly how I would be a leader of people. I didn't understand. So the Arizona State Troopers kidnapped me. I'm not going to go through that story. I'm not going to trigger myself. And they ended up putting me in a jail. They ended up driving me along a tortuous highway in a vehicle that was designed to break my back. It had me crunched up in the back, and I'm only 5'5", and it had my knees way up here, and Foxy and I are sliding around back and forth in this vehicle, and I'm handcuffed like this, and it broke my back. I walked with a limp for a couple of years. I still do sometimes, but it's much, much better. And because of the Scottsdale and I, filming the Wickenburg train and finding the archaeological sites and not stopping and driving along the road and identifying how the road gang on this piece of road distracts drivers to discourage people from driving from Phoenix to Las Vegas for a little fun. I'm doing all this, and the Arizona State Troopers take me out. They take me out. They kidnap me. They torture me. They break my back. They put me in jail. They put my dog in a kennel, and they hold me in jail, and they transfer me to another jail, and they have an arraignment over televideo, but they will not let me speak for myself or say anything, and they take me out of the room before the session is over. Only me. And they hold me in this jail overnight, and then they let me out, and I'm like over an hour from where where my car was towed after the Arizona State Trooper broke the window out. Okay, so he broke the window out. So let's get to Honda, GEICO, and CarMax. Honda dealership knew what happened with the Arizona State Troopers, okay? This is a closed community, and they all have decided that they're going to take me out one way or another, right? So the police report, there were 3 different police reports filed, and it went through 3 different judges. Verde Valley Justice Court, something like that. I don't know. It went through Thomas Kelly, Catherine Kelly, and Tina Angley. And it ended with Tina Angley. And they sent me 3 police reports and 3 lists of my charges, each time different. And as they evaluated the data that I published online, they ended up with one charge, and that was fleeing the police, right? They wouldn't listen to me at all. I was on 911 the entire time that I was supposedly fleeing the police. They said that I was parked in an illegal space, but I had proof on Twitter that they themselves reviewed that I was parked in a legal space, plus 3 witnesses from Bullhead City, Arizona, saw me parked, and they were parked there too. In fact, one of the reasons why the police didn't apprehend me at that rest stop that's hidden was a hidden, you had to know it was there like I did. And I was pulling over because at twilight, at my age, I can't see as clearly as I can during pure day or pure night. So I had to stop until the lights were dark and I could drive again, especially through that trap that they have set there of the vehicles that come with their bright lights on, and always in the same pattern. Normal lights, bright lights on the side so that you don't see them coming until they're in your face, and then a big truck, and then behind the truck another back set. It was a whole pattern, and I was describing it all to my audience in Twitter. So I get my car and it's all damaged, the window's all beaten up, but I happen to have a nice roll of Gorilla Tape and I am able to seal the window. I'm just so lucky like that. And I had live broadcasted a lot of what happened on either my iPhone, and when they took it out, I broadcasted it on my iPad Pro. I have to answer this door. It's probably the plumber right now. So I will be back with my story, part 2. Thank you for joining me. I'll be back.